I'm Tristan Higgins, for those who don't know. And as you can see from here, and as you just heard, I started a band. So my central question is, how will starting a band teach me about sound engineering, planning, and collaboration? Because those are all things that I have not had experience with up until this project. And I chose this project because I've always wanted to start a band ever since I learned to play the drums. And I want to be a professional musician when I grow up. And so starting a band is pretty relevant to that. And I have a lot of prior knowledge learning to play the drums through my whole life, and music has just been a huge part of my life. I think my first genuine memory I ever have is like standing in this blue rocking chair jamming out to Walk This Way by Aerosmith. And as you see from this graphic, childhood video game Guitar Hero, pretty fun. So yeah, my prior knowledge, I've been drumming since the 5th grade. And then I've also been playing jazz through middle school and high school. And jazz was good, but it was structured, and I didn't really have to think too much about running anything because that was what the director would do. And then on the flip side, that jamming is very non-structured, and it's more about reacting to what everyone else is playing, but there's not really a higher purpose to it like a band would have. And so my first essential question was, how can starting a band teach me about being a professional musician? But that's changed mostly because of time, and I didn't really get to experience a lot of the business side to being a professional musician, and also we haven't been able to play any gigs yet. And so in the beginning, we had our first practices. This was going to be a rock band, obviously, because it's the genre that all three of us really enjoy. And for time purposes, we weren't going to create any original songs, although we technically did create one. So we mostly did covers. And the name of our band is The Creeks. Little advice, if you're going to start your band, don't spend too much time on the name, because I did, and then we went with one that Dawson came up with like a year ago. And then I also had to begin researching my topic, and so a good place to start, well, the obvious place to start would be how to start a band. Look that up. And I found an article written by a guitarist, Doug Marks, and he's played with musicians from Guns N' Roses and Judas Priest. And so he wrote an article, and it gave like a detailed, like step-by-step, like instructions on how to start a band. I found that I had done a lot of those steps already just by being friends with Dawson and Chase. Like I didn't need to audition them because I already knew where they were in their technical skill. And we already really had a place to rehearse, either Dawson's house, which is where we mostly practiced, or my basement, where my dad's bands would rehearse sometimes. And then I also had to find a mentor. And so my mentor is Nick Burnett. He's Dawson's dad. He has a lot of experience playing bands. These are just some. You see, these are just some of the bands he's been in over his lifetime. And he also has experience with studio drumming and sound engineering, which is a lot of what he taught me, because I had never had any experience with that before, and I need to know that. And so, to begin with mics and sound, there are two different kinds of microphones. There are dynamic microphones, which they're very rugged. They can take a lot of beating, and they don't require a power supply. You just plug them in to the board, and the sound is not as accurate, and they have a limited frequency response, but they can withstand high sound pressure levels, which is why they're good for miking drums. So they're used for like the snare, the toms, and the bass drum. Whereas condenser microphones, the other type of microphones, they capture a large frequency range, and they have a good transient response, which is why they're good for miking the cymbals, because they give a good, nice, crisp, and more natural sound than dynamic microphones. And that's what you want when you want to capture the sound of cymbals. And they're also used for the overheads. So from this graph, you see the two microphones with the split overheads. That's to capture the overall sound of the drums, the cymbals, and also the room that you're playing in. And so then you also want to mic the kick. And so a lot of drums will either have a hole cut in the bass drum. This one does not. And what you do is you would stick a dynamic microphone, usually with a lower frequency because you're capturing the bass. You would stick that about a third of the way in, and the closer you put it towards the back side of the bass drum, you're going to get a more punchier, shorter sound. And the more you pull it out, it's going to get a more like loose and lower end sound. And so another thing to do with the bass drum is you want to take a condenser microphone and you want to put it on the angle on the other side to capture the attack from the beat directly hitting the bass drum. And the next thing that Nick taught me about was the positioning of the microphones around the drums. So for example, when you're miking the snare and toms, you want to, again, like I said before, use dynamics. And you want to generally start at about a 45-degree angle, about an inch up from the rim, and about an inch in from the rim. And for the lower end of the drums, if you want to capture more of the lower end, you move it down closer to the heads. And if you want more of attack from the drummer hitting the drum with a stick, you would move the mic more towards where he's hitting the drum with a stick for the attack. And if you have like a lot of sustain from the drums, you can just use muffling paddings. There's also this thing called moon gel, which is like these little gel pads you can stick on the drum. And another thing that can happen too is bleed from, because since all these mics and the drums are in close proximity, you're gonna pick up the other drums from, like I said, mic, you're gonna hear the tom and the cymbals. So to reduce the bleed, you can angle, or you can stick the microphone closer to the snare. And likewise, for the cymbals, you can take the overheads and position them more closely to the cymbals. And sometimes, like in this graphic, you can see people will double mic the snare. And so the reason why you might do this is to capture the sizzle from the snare. That's at the bottom of the snare drum. The top picture is what that looks like. For those of you who have not seen that. And so what can happen is if one of your microphones is picking up a positive phase while the other one's picking up a negative, those two will cancel each other out. And so what can happen is when you add in, say, snare mic A and snare mic B, it might sound hollow because you would expect for the sound to sound larger because you're adding in two different sounds, but if it doesn't, or it sounds a little bit hollow or dull, then you're getting phase cancellation. And so what you have to do is on one of the mics, you have to flip the phase, which happens at the mixing board. And by flipping the phase, they'll both be in a positive or negative direction, and you will get rid of that phase cancellation. And so challenges for my project has been time. I haven't had a lot of time, like I said before, to get any gigs for this band. And so it's kind of like more geared towards playing at this Senior X. But that was another challenge too, because if we were just a Senior X band, they wasn't very motivated. And so there are times where it felt like kind of low. But I fixed that by, I asked Dawson and Chase if they wanted to continue this, and they both said yeah. So we're going to be continuing this, and we're going to try to actually get some gigs. And so one of the more major takeaway that I got from this is actually running the band. I've never done any of this before. I was very inexperienced with actually running this band. And so, like I said before, the vision of the band, I didn't do a good job of explaining to them that I wanted to continue this, so it was largely more geared towards actually playing at Senior X. And then scheduling rehearsals, I would try to schedule them pretty late, last minute, and then they would, obviously someone would be like, oh, I can't do it. And that would get a little bit discouraging at times, but I found that what works really good is if you sit down and you say, like, you look at everyone's schedules and you say, like, oh, well, this is the one day that is like open for everyone. And this seems really obvious, but when you actually do this, it's like little things like that you kind of forget. You get wrapped up in all sorts of other things. And so if you find a day that works best for everyone, and you just say, hey, we're gonna try to aim for this day every week, and that works the best I found. And I'll tell you why in a couple slides later. And then also vocals. Dawson, I would try to get our band to play songs that were in Dawson's vocal range. And after the first time, you would again think that maybe I would sit down with Dawson and say, like, hey, what is your vocal range and what songs can you sing? And I didn't do that because I'm very inexperienced. I don't really know what I'm doing. And so what would happen is I would think of a song that's fun to play, that I have fun playing along to, practicing, and then I go to them and say, hey, can you learn this? And then usually we would learn it, but then Dawson's like, I can't really sing this. And so that goes back to my essential question of what I've learned about playing. And it's that I gotta be more, and also with the collaboration, I have to communicate a lot more with my bandmates, and I have to be more forward thinking than I am, and less reactionary. I gotta actually think things through. And so that's one of the big things I've taken away from this project is the leadership skills, the communication and the scheduling. And the reason that I was talking about how I know that the whole scheduling like a certain day works well is because I branched out and I started a second band when Dawson and Chase went to Guatemala for 2 weeks. And that band's called LPD, and it's got Chandler, Sarah Knox, and Ivan in it, and we did that. Ivan's got track practice, so he can only really do it Sunday, so we agreed on that day. And then playing with other musicians, it goes back to what I was saying about Dawson's vocal range, is that I'm not playing along to tracks, so I need to think about other how other musicians play. And so I'm going to be going to Berkeley in the fall, and I really want to start or join a band there. And so I'm going to use this experience to help me with that. And then Blueberry Jam's coming up. And Nick Brunette also suggested that I think, not necessarily, before I start playing gigs, get like either my friends to show up and listen to us, and we do like a really casual thing. And that's kind of what the purpose of Blueberry Jam is serving for this, is so that we can have some practice before we actually go out and try to find some good gigs to play. And I'm also, like I said before, planning to keep this band going, play some gigs. So we're going to do a short performance while the band is just going to play another song really quick.